Hey guys, welcome back. I am Ashish and today we'll be continuing with our module 2, which is nothing but administrative thought. So we have already dealt with F.W. Taylor and scientific management. We have dealt with classical theory. In classical theory we have dealt with Henry Fayol, Gulick and Urwick and Mooney and Riley, and today we'll be dealing with Max Weber and Weber's bureaucratic model, its critique and post-Weberian developments. Now this session of Max Weber I have divided into 4 parts, and this PPT would be available to download only after all the 4 parts have been uploaded, so hold on to that. Also, I will be definitely using some terms and definitions which I have already dealt with in my previous sessions, so please watch my previous sessions before proceeding ahead. Also pay close attention to this session because it will contain some new terms and definitions also. So moving on with today's session, which is nothing but Max Weber. Now Max Weber is a German scholar. We'll learn about him today. So basically, to start with, what do you understand by bureaucracy? Now remember, there are two kinds of officials in a government. One are elected representatives, which we as a people elect, who are nothing but politicians, and another group of people are non-elected representatives who we do not elect but who are appointed to those positions, and these non-elected representatives are usually known as bureaucrats. To give you an example, the civil servants are nothing but bureaucrats. As an IAS officer, as an IPS officer, you will be a bureaucrat. And civil servants is not the only example of bureaucracies. It includes all the institutions within the framework of the government, all the institutions that are related to administration of government. Now basically, the work of politicians is to make a broad outline of any policy. Politicians or elected representatives just make a broad outline of any policy. On the other hand, what bureaucrats do is they prepare the technical details inside those policies, and the execution of those policies is their responsibility. So basically the entire administration is in the hands of bureaucrats. So I hope you understand now what bureaucracy means. It is nothing but a group of people who are not elected by people themselves but who are appointed on those positions by virtue of their talent. So coming back to Max Weber, in the classical approach to administration, Weberian model of bureaucracy finds a central place. Max Weber is the first thinker who has systematically studied the bureaucracy. He was the first thinker to systematically study the bureaucracy. As we have seen in our classical theory part, none of the thinkers dealt with bureaucracy as such. They gave us principles of management. Taylor gave us scientific management principles, but none of them dealt with bureaucracy as such, a group of non-elected representatives of the government. It was Max Weber who first dealt with bureaucracy, the concept of bureaucracy. He was the first thinker who systematically studied the bureaucracy. His analysis influenced many modern writers on bureaucracy. So after he gave his theory on bureaucracy, many modern writers gave their bureaucracy theories. Weber, apart from bureaucracy, wrote on various aspects of the society ranging from history, religion to legitimacy and domination. He wrote on all of these subjects also. Weber was founder of modern sociology and a greatest scholar among the pioneers of administrative thought. Moving on, about Weber's life and his writings. Max Weber was born in 1864 and he died in 1920, and he was born in Western Germany of those times, which was nothing but Prussia, and he studied law and economics. Now if you see this timeline, you will realize that Max Weber was a contemporary of F.W. Taylor. If you remember, F.W. Taylor's book or work on principles of scientific management was released in 1911, and Max Weber died in 1920. So basically, theory of bureaucracy and scientific management both were going parallel. They were both contemporaries. And before 1911 also, in 1885, let's say, F.W. Taylor gave his book A Piece Rate System. So basically Max Weber and F.W. Taylor were contemporaries. So scientific management and theory of bureaucracy were going side by side. And Max Weber was in Germany and F.W. Taylor was in USA. So remember that. He wrote a number of papers on law and social and political economic factors of his time. So Max Weber gave a lot of theories and lot of papers. His major writings are Theory of Economic and Social Organizations, General Economic History, and the most important of his writings is what came in 1904, which is nothing but Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. Now based on this particular book, there might be a question in UPSC to compare Karl Marx versus Weber. So what I'll do is I'll talk about this Karl Marx versus Weber for a little bit. Please pay close attention to this because this is really important. So in his book 1904, he gave a book which is nothing but Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. In this book he propounded some ideas. Now what these ideas were, Max Weber was basically a sociologist, okay, so he analyzed relationship between Protestantism and capitalism. Now you will study about capitalism in your public policy module, which has a part of state theories. So in state theories you will study about capitalism in more detail. To give you a very brief idea of what capitalism is, it is basically some something which deals with profit motive. Markets are given a free hand. There is not much intervention from the state. State does not interfere too much in the market. So this is nothing but a very basic and very brief idea of capitalism. Much about it you will study in state theories part of public policy module. So what Weber did in his book in 1904, he gave a book. What he did was he analyzed the relationship between Protestantism and capitalism. He argues that the rise of capitalism was a product of the ideas and ethic of Protestantism. Now what is Protestantism? Very briefly, it is a sect or division of Christianity. Now Christianity has three sects, three main sects or three main divisions, one of which is Roman Catholic Christians. Second sect or division of Christianity is Protestant Christianity, which came to rise saying that there are some errors in Roman Catholic practice, and to get rid of those errors, Protestant Christianity came to rise. And the third sect or the division of Christianity is nothing but Orthodox Christianity. So we'll not go into details of what these particular sects of Christianity deal with. There are also again subdivisions of these sects. So basically just understand that there are three main sects or three main divisions of Christianity: Roman Catholic, Protestants and Orthodox. So what Max Weber said was rise of capitalism was a product of the ideas of Protestantism. Specifically, the Protestant Christianity was the reason for the rise of capitalist economy. Now you have to understand something. Weber grew up in a society in 1864, as you can see in 1864, and he has seen a lot of turmoil in his times. He saw his country go through some very big and dramatic changes. First of all, due to industrial revolution. Industrial revolution had spread from England to other parts of Europe, so he saw his country go through some really dramatic changes due to those industrial revolution, technological booms. Cities were exploding in size, vast companies were forming in his country, and the old aristocracy which was present, that old aristocracy was being replaced by the new managerial elite. And why was this happening? Because of industrial revolution. Because industries and factories were coming up, new managerial elite people were replacing the old aristocracy. So Weber spent his life analyzing these changes, these dramatic and big changes which were happening in his country. And to answer the question of why does capitalism exist, Weber gave us an answer to that. The standard view is that capitalism began with technological advances, especially with the beginning of industrial revolution. So there were many technological advances, and this is what gave rise to capitalism. This is the standard view. But Weber opposed this, and he proposed that it was due to a set of ideas and not just technology, and in particular religious ideas. It was due to religious ideas that capitalism rose. Capitalism was created by Protestantism. Specifically, Protestant Christianity was the reason behind rise of capitalism. This is what Max Weber said. In his book, The Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism, he gave reasons for this. Weber said that it was relatively easy for Catholics to overcome their guilt by confessing. Confessions happen for Catholic. They can confess before priests. So it was relatively easy for Catholics to overcome their guilt. Whatever sins they have committed, they just confess before priests, and this is how they overcome their guilt. But this is not the practice in Protestant Christianity. Only God can forgive anyone. This is what Protestant Christians believed. So they did not have the practice of confessions before priests. So Weber said that Protestants are left with their anxiety and guilt. Their guilt did not find a way out, right? So they are left with their anxiety and guilt, and this guilty feeling were diverted into an obsession with hard work. This was what he called Protestant work ethic. All their sins were to be washed away by hard work. So they worked really hard, and this is nothing but Protestant work ethic. This is what Weber called as Protestant work ethic. And they believed that all their work was holy, and even being a baker or a banker, all the work was holy, and this is how they will be redeemed of their sins. This is how they will be redeemed of their guilt. So they worked really hard. Protestant Christians worked really hard because they did not have any way to let out their guilt like the Roman Catholics did by confessions. And this lent new moral energy to all the branches of their professional life. Be a baker or a banker, all of them worked hard. So people basically rejected miracles and they turned to science for explanations and changes, which encouraged scientific inventions and scientific discoveries, and eventually technological booms happened. And all of these factors together catalyzed capitalism, according to Weber. So basically Protestant Christianity was one of the main reasons behind the rise of capitalism. This is what Weber says. Now this is in opposition to what Karl Marx suggested. Now Karl Marx ideas also you will study under state theories in public policy module. What Karl Marx said is he associated bureaucracy with class struggle. He said that there is one elite class which dominated over the lower class. So this kind of class struggle and class domination was associated with bureaucracy by Karl Marx. Basically for Karl Marx, remember this, for Karl Marx, bureaucracy was an apparatus of oppression. So to give you a brief idea about Karl Marx's theory of socialism, what Karl Marx suggested was the end point or the conclusion of socialism is nothing but communism, and communism will be a stateless society and a classless society. There will be no classes, no upper class, lower class, middle class. There will be no state, no governments. People will rule themselves. So final communist society would be a stateless and a classless society. This is what Karl Marx said. This is what Karl Marx's theory of socialism says, that final point, that is communism, is stateless and classless endeavor. And to reach that stateless and classless point, we have to, in between, before dismantling the state, we have to dismantle the bureaucracy. So destruction of bureaucracy was a large part of Karl Marx's theory of socialism, because Karl Marx associated bureaucracy with apparatus of oppression, and he used this term parasites for bureaucracy. Literally he said bureaucrats were parasites. And also he gave a theory of alienation. All this you will study in state theories, do not worry about this. I am just giving you a very brief idea, very brief idea. Karl Marx gave us a theory of alienation. He said that because of bureaucracy, normal people were alienated. There was loss of freedom, there was loss of humanity, loss of creativity, loss of morality. So this is how Karl Marx said that people were alienated because of bureaucracy. So basically bureaucracy was parasites according to Karl Marx, and bureaucracy was a apparatus of state oppression. And regarding religion, what Karl Marx believed about religion is, he said that religion was the opium of the masses, a drug that induced passive acceptance of the horrors of capitalism. So for Karl Marx, religion is not what gave rise to capitalism. Religion is something because of which capitalism is tolerated by people. I hope you understand now. Religion is the opium of masses. This is what Karl Marx said. Because of religion, they tolerate what capitalist society does to them. This is what Karl Marx said. But Weber said differently. He said that people did not tolerate capitalism due to religion. They only became capitalists as a result of their religion. So I hope you understand the main difference between Karl Marx and Weber now. So in exam, if you encounter a question which asks you to compare Karl Marx and Weber, I hope you will be able to write the answer now. So moving on with Weber's life and writings. Weber always preferred knowledge obtained through practical experience than library research. His writings reflect the social conditions of Germany of his time. Unification of Germany under Bismarck and elimination of liberal middle class movement convinced Weber that the great goal could be achieved through power politics. Now this thing, unification of Germany under Bismarck, this you will study under word history. If you have not studied yet, you will study in under word history. So do not worry about this. There is a pretty big topic of unification of Germany as a part of your UPSC syllabus. It happened in 1871. As you can see, Max Weber was born in 1864 and unification of Germany happened in 1871 under Bismarck. In 1871, after the Franco-Prussian War. You will study all this in word history. After the Franco-Prussian War, Kaiser William I was declared the king of Germany, and this was what gave rise to German Reich. So in 1871 this happened, unification of Germany under Bismarck, and Max Weber witnessed this, and elimination of liberal middle class. Because of unification of Germany under Bismarck, there was an elimination of liberal middle class movement, and this everything, this unification of Germany incident and elimination of liberalists, this convinced Weber that the great goal could be achieved only through power policies. If you have power, only then you can achieve your great goal. Otherwise, there is no possibility that your great goal could be achieved. Weber wrote in German and his works were not known to English speaking world. Now as we have seen in our Fayol's lecture, the same thing happened with Weber and Fayol both. Fayol was a French guy, Weber was a German guy, and they wrote in French and German respectively. And to the English speaking world, to the western countries of USA and other English speaking countries, their work did not become popular till very late, when their works were translated into English. So as you can see, under Nazi persecution, many German scholars fled Hitler's Germany and settled down in USA. These immigrant scholars who, because of Nazi persecution, who came to USA, these immigrant scholars introduced the word to Weber's writings. But that happened after the end of Second World War. Now you realize how late it was. In 1904 he gave his book, and before that also he gave some books, but only after Second World War, that is in 1945 and after, his works were introduced to the English speaking world. So you realize how late this was. In 1946, the Oxford University Press published Girth and Mill's translation from Max Weber, Essays in Sociology. This was the first book that the English-speaking world, the USA, came face to face with Max Weber in 1946. It was the Girth and Mill's translation of Max Weber, and this book was titled From Max Weber, Essays in Sociology. So you realize that outside Europe, these great thinkers and scholars like Henry Fayol and Max Weber were not so popular because they wrote in their regional languages and not in English. So moving on, bureaucracy before Weber. So how people dealt with bureaucracy and how bureaucracy came to being before Max Weber, we'll see about that in this slide. Bureaucracy was discussed prior to Weber's writing. Obviously he was not the first person to discuss it, he was the first person to systematically study it, but it was being discussed before him also, right? Invention of word bureaucracy goes to Vincent de Gournay. He was a French economist and he gave this word in 1745. For him, bureaucracy signified the rule of officials. So whatever the officials were there when they ruled, this is nothing but bureaucracy. This is what Vincent de Gournay said in his time in 1745. He stated, we have an illness in France and this illness is called bureaumania. He came up with this word. It rapidly became a standard and accepted term in the conventions of political discourse. So it caught on. Bureaucracy as a word caught on and it rapidly became a standard word. By the end of 19th century, the term was assumed to be of German origin, where it was used as bureaucratic. J.S. Mill was an eminent political scientist. He included bureaucracy in a series of analysis. So basically many authors have analyzed bureaucracy in their works. They did not systematically study it, but they have analyzed, they have dealt with it, they came up with these words. In Germany it was famous, as you can see. Karl Marx also discussed bureaucracy at certain places. As stated by Mohit Bhattacharya says, according to Marx, bureaucracy, like state itself, is an instrument by which dominant class exercises domination over other social classes. This is what I dealt with in my previous slide. In previous slide I told you how Karl Marx associated bureaucracy with the apparatus of oppression, apparatus of state domination. So this is what Mohit Bhattacharya also says. According to Marx, bureaucracy, like a state itself, is an instrument by which dominant class exercises domination over the other social classes. So bureaucracy is a parasite, it is an instrument of oppression and state domination. Hegel was another thinker who conceived the governing bureaucracy of public as a bridge between the state and civil society. So Hegel said that bureaucracy was a bridge between the state or the government and the civil society. Robert Michels was another thinker who propounded the concept of iron law of oligarchy. Now what is oligarchy? Oligarchy is nothing but control of power in a group of people, in a limited group of people. If they control power, those are called as oligarchs or oligarchy. So Robert Michel gave a concept of iron law of oligarchy. According to this concept, large organizations have a tendency to develop a bureaucratic structure, which is nothing but an oligarchic system. So whatever large organizations are there, they develop within themselves a bureaucratic structure, and he termed these bureaucratic structures as oligarchic systems. Bureaucracy as an institution existed in China even in the period of 186 BC. Now remember this point, this might not be important for UPSC, but to relate with the subject, you remember this, that even in China in 186 BC, as old as 186 BC, bureaucracy existed in China. Public offices were in existence and persons for those offices were recruited through competitive examinations even then. So you can see now how old bureaucracy is. It is not Max Weber that came up with the word bureaucracy. Max Weber just studied the term bureaucracy in a very detailed and very deep manner, and this is what gave Max Weber his association with bureaucracy. So the above discussion shows that there existed a bureaucracy much earlier to Weberian writings, and also there were attempts to understand the bureaucracy by different writings. So Weber was not the first person to analyze bureaucracy. However, the systematic study of bureaucracy began with Max Weber. First scientific treatment of bureaucracy came from his writings. Hence, his name became more synonymous with bureaucracy because he gave us a systematic study of bureaucracy. S.R. Maheshwari, he is an Indian thinker. S.R. Maheshwari says that it was Weber who founded the modern sociological study of bureaucracy, freed the term from pejorative connotation, and emphasized its indispensability for the rational attainment of the goals of an organization. What do you mean by pejorative? It is nothing but insulting or derogatory, something which insults. So there was something very bad meaning attached to the term bureaucracy. Max Weber attached the term bureaucracy with class domination and whatnot. So there were bad meanings attached with the term bureaucracy. It was associated with class domination and oppression by state. So what Max Weber did was he freed the term from these pejorative connotations, and he emphasized that bureaucracy is indispensable. It is very much important for the rational attainment of the goals of an organization. So if you have to attain the goals of your organization, bureaucracy is important. important. This is what Max Weber did, and that is why he is much more known for bureaucracy than other writers. So moving on, the context of Weber's bureaucracy. Now, as I have already told you, F.W. Taylor and Max Weber were contemporaries. Max Weber was in Germany and F.W. Taylor was in USA. So, scientific management and theory of bureaucracy marked the first major developments in theory of organization. These theories were responding to the needs of industrial organizations. Now, when you will study under module organizations also, in under module organization there are theories of organization. When you will study theories of organization, you will study this again: scientific management model of organization, bureaucracy model of organization. So these models of organizations were the first major developments in organization. These were responding to the needs of industrial organizations because of industrial revolution. You must remember this. Theory of bureaucracy was needed to bring the efficiency in its functioning because new industries and factories were coming up, as we saw during Max Weber's time. Theory of bureaucracy was needed to bring the efficiency in those functioning. As stated by Weber, no special proof is necessary to show that military discipline is the ideal model for modern capitalist factory. So Weber said that whatever modern capitalist factories were rising up, we need military discipline for those factories. He said that there is no special proof required to show you that military discipline is ideal for these new and upcoming modern capitalist factories. Weber's theory derives a great deal from the Prussian military forces. So because his theory derives from military forces, he dealt with discipline in his idea of bureaucracy. We'll learn about it in elements of bureaucracy part, what Weber suggested should be the elements of bureaucracy. So discipline was a major factor for Weber. Keep in mind this. Weber felt that emergence of modern bureaucratic organization is demanded. It is the demand of time. It is the need of time that modern bureaucratic organizations be emerged. More specifically, today it is primarily the capitalist market economy which demands the official business of the administration be discharged precisely, unambiguously, continuously, and with as much speed as possible. So because there was capitalist market on rise, because there was capitalism on rise, and because of this rise of capitalism, it was the need of time, it was the demand of time that business of administration should be discharged unambiguously, it should be discharged continuously, and it should be discharged precisely. And this is why we need bureaucracy. This is what Weber said. Above lines show that Weber's theory of bureaucracy was a response to the demands of industrial capitalist economy. Because of industrial revolution, whatever the capitalist economy was on the rise, Weber's theory of bureaucracy was a response to that, which required an efficient administration. While Taylor, F.W. Taylor in scientific management attempted to rationalize functions of modern factory, Weber made an attempt at the rationalization of bureaucratic structures. So what Taylor gave us was one best way to do things. If you remember his experiments on shoveling of coal, his experiments on statements on the person who is handling pig iron, if you remember those, Taylor attempted to rationalize functions of modern factory. Whatever the functions of factory is handling, that should be rationalized. There should be one best way of doing things. That is what Taylor said. What Weber said was he rationalized the bureaucratic structures as such, the entire structure, how it should be operated, how it should be formed, the bureaucracy, how it should look like. This is what Weber dealt with. He did not deal with the functions and the rationalization of functions. He dealt with rationalization of the structures. Both of them, however, both Weber and F.W. Taylor emphasized on the control and discipline. We have seen this in F.W. Taylor's also, that discipline was one of the major factors that F.W. Taylor emphasized on, and rationality. So control and discipline was something that which was common between F.W. Taylor and Max Weber. So moving on, we say that Weber's model of bureaucracy is ideal type. And we do not say this. Actually, Weber has himself said that I have given you an ideal type bureaucracy. So what this ideal type means, we'll see. Max Weber called his formulation of bureaucracy as ideal type. The ideal type is a mental map or mental construct. In its conceptual purity, this mental construct cannot be found empirically anywhere in reality. Thus, it is an utopia. Mohit Bhattacharya says in Weberian formulation, bureaucracy is not to be confused with civil service. It refers to the sociological concept of rationalization of collective activities. Now, what this basically means is, Max Weber himself said that my model of bureaucracy is an ideal type. It does not exist in reality. It is just a mental map. It is just a mental construct. It is an utopia. Utopia means which does not ideally exist. It is just a theory. It does not actually exist. So what we should do is, whatever bureaucracy exists in the world, whatever bureaucracies are there in the world, they should try to achieve this ideal type. There should be a conscious effort to achieve this ideal type of bureaucracy. However, it does not exist anywhere in reality. You cannot say that ideal type of bureaucracy exists in Germany or in USA or in Britain. It does not exist. It is just a mental map. It is just a mental construct. It does not empirically exist anywhere. It is an utopia, and we should all strive towards achieving it. That is why he called it an ideal type. He did not call it an ideal bureaucracy. He called it an ideal type bureaucracy. I hope you understand now. Now Mohit Bhattacharya, who is again an Indian scholar, Mohit Bhattacharya says in Weberian formulation, bureaucracy is not to be confused with the civil service. So very basically, civil services are a type of bureaucracy, but they are not the only embodiment of bureaucracy. Civil servants are not the only bureaucrats. There are many state apparatus and many state institutions which come within the boundaries of government, which can be defined as bureaucrats or bureaucracy. All of those institutions and persons which are related to administrations anyhow or somehow are nothing but bureaucrats and bureaucracy. So we'll see this in future slides also. Max Weber never defined bureaucracy. He described bureaucracy, but he never gave a definition of bureaucracy. So in Weberian formulation, according to Weber, bureaucracy should not be confused with civil service. We'll see this in our future slides also. It refers to the sociological concept of rationalization of collective activities. So whatever collective activities you are rationalizing, this sociological concept is bureaucracy, and not only civil service. So remember this. So moving on, we'll now deal with Max Weber on authority. Max Weber said some very important things on authority. We'll deal with Max Weber on authority now. So Max Weber's concept of bureaucracy is closely related to his ideas on legitimacy of authority. Now remember this. This is very important sentence. We'll encounter this many times in the course of future couple of slides. Max Weber's concept of bureaucracy is closely related to his ideas on legitimacy of authority. What Max Weber said is, you have the authority only as long as it is legitimate, only as long as it is validated by the people who are following your authority. As soon as you lose this legitimacy, you lose your authority. This is what Max Weber said. We'll learn about it more detail in future slides. So for now, understand that his idea of bureaucracy is related with his ideas of legitimacy of authority. He worked on the theories of domination, leadership and legitimacy of authority. Weber differentiated authority, power and control, and what he said about them was power. Power to Weber was, a person could be said to possess power if in a social relationship his will could be enforced despite resistance. So if you are resisting someone, if you are against someone, against someone's ideas, but still he is able to enforce his will, he is able to enforce his command, he is able to enforce you to obey him, that person is said to be possessing power. Power to him was in spite and despite of resistance. If a will of a person can be enforced, that is power. तो आप किसी को अपोज कर रहे हो, लेकिन अगर वो फिर भी आपसे अपनी बात मनवा रहा है, तो उस आदमी के पास पावर है, ऐसा मैक्स वेबर ने कहा. Authority, regarding authority, Max Weber said that authority manifests when a command of definite content elicits obedience on the part of individuals. For Weber, authority was identical with authoritarian power of command. Basically understand that if you are resisting and still he is able to enforce his will, that is power. Authority is power to command and duty to obey. If the people who are following you have a duty to obey you, that is when you are said to have authority. They do not resist you, they do not oppose you, it is their duty to obey you. They think that it is their duty to obey you. That is when you have your authority. It is different from power because there is no resistance in authority, there is obedience, people obey you. That is authority for Max Weber. I hope you understand the difference between power and authority now. For Weber, this type of authority where you have a power of command and people obey you, this was identical with authoritarian power of command. Authority is the state of reality where a person willingly complies with legitimate commands or orders because he considers that a person by virtue of his position could issue orders to him. So basically, if you are a person obeying someone's command, if you think that that person by the virtue of his positions, by the virtue of his talent, by the virtue of his extraordinary or special qualities, he has this virtue of giving orders to you. If you are willingly complying with these orders and commands, thinking that it is their right to command you and it is your duty to obey them, that is when it is the authority. As I have already said, there is a willing compliance and obedience on the part of people, and they think that the person who is giving orders, it is by the virtue of his position that he is giving orders and it is their duty to obey their orders. This is what authority is. In power there is no willing obedience. In authority there is willing obedience, there is willing compliance. In power there is no willing obedience. So I hope this is clear, his ideas on power, authority. Moving on, there are some components of authority that Weber gave. We will look about them. Weber identified 5 essential components of authority. They are an individual of body of individuals who rule, obviously someone who rules. Second is someone who is ruled, someone who rules, someone who is ruled, an individual or body of individuals who are ruled. Third is the will of the rulers to influence the conduct of the ruled. So first component is someone who rules, second component is someone who is ruled, third component is the will of the ruler which influences people. That will of the ruler is the third component. The ruler should have a will, he should have a desired goal and objective to be achieved. The fourth component is evidence of the influence of the rulers in terms of objective degree of command, and the fifth is direct or indirect evidence of the influence in terms of subjective acceptance with which the ruled obey the command. So as you can see, the fourth is influence on people in a objective degree, and fifth is influence on people in a subjective degree. So what is objective degree of influence? It basically means in general how accepted your ideas or commands are. In general, overall, if you see the outlook or the overview, in general are people obeying you? That is nothing but objective. And subjective acceptance is how many people, how many number of people are actually accepting, person to person, subject to subject. This is the subjective acceptance. So objective degree of acceptance is nothing but you see an overall picture, an overview as a whole. In general, are your ideas accepted? Are you a famous leader? So this is nothing but objective acceptance. And subjective acceptance is how many actually number of people, out of 10 people, how many actually are obeying you. So these are nothing but 5 components of authority: someone who rules, someone who is ruled, the will of the rulers, fourth is the objective degree of acceptance or influence on the people, and the fifth is the subjective acceptance of the commands of the ruler. So moving on, categories of people in an organization. So Weber gave us some categories of people that exist in any organization. According to Weber, the authority exists as long as it is accepted as legitimate by the ruled. As I have said, this will be the common running theme in our next feature slides for a couple of slides. Basically, if you have the authority, you have the authority as long as it is considered legitimate. As soon as you lose this legitimacy, as soon as people reject your right to command them, you lose the authority. Thus, an administrator or organization can rule only when it has legitimacy. Weber says bureaucratic administration means fundamentally domination through knowledge. So basically, bureaucrats, you have to understand that bureaucrats are experts. They are people who formulate the intricate details of policy. The work of politicians or elected representatives is nothing but formulating an overview of policy, and the work of bureaucrats is nothing but formulating the intricate details of every policy and executing them. So bureaucrats are basically experts in their fields. So they have that special technical knowledge which makes them arrive at rational decisions. So due to this special knowledge, due to their expertise, due to their rationality power, due to all these things, bureaucratic administration fundamentally is nothing but domination through knowledge. They dominate because of their knowledge, because of their expertise. This is what Weber says. Weber categorized persons in the organization into 4 types. There are 4 types of people in every organization. This is what Weber says. First type is those who are accustomed to obey commands. They do not care. These kind of people do not care. They are used to obey commands. उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता, उनको अब आदत पड़ चुकी है, उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता, आप उनको ऑर्डर दे दो वो लोग ओबे कर लेंगे, उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता. They are accustomed to obey commands. They are used to obey commands. These are the first type of people. The second type of people are those who are personally interested in seeing the existing domination continue. The first kind did not bother. They are used to commands. The second type are personally interested. They are basically in favor of seeing the existing domination continue. These people also obey commands, but they do so from their whole heart because they love the person or they respect the person. They are personally interested in seeing that person dominate. These are the second kind of people in an organization. The third kind is those who participate in that domination. For example, a leader or a person who is giving command will have associates or friends who give orders on his part. So these are the people who themselves participate in domination, who themselves participate in giving orders on behalf of the leader or the supreme commander. So these are the third kind of people. And the fourth kind of people are those who hold themselves in readiness for the exercise of functions. So these are the kind of people who do not care anything about commands or domination. They just want to execute their functions or exercise the responsibilities given to them to the most efficient manner, and along the way, for exercising of their functions, if there is a command from their superiors which is good for their exercise of functions, they are ready for that. So these are the people who are ready for executing their responsibilities to the maximum extent. These are the fourth kind of people. So these are the four types of people that Weber says exist in any kind of organization. So moving on, there are various types of authority that Weber gave us. Basically three types of authority that Weber gave us. We'll learn about it. So since Weber believed that authority could be exercised as long as it is legitimate, we have seen this in our previous slides. Weber believed that as long as it is legitimate, only till then you have the authority. And this kind of legitimate authority he divided into three types. There are three types of legitimate authorities which are based on the sources of legitimacy. First kind is traditional authority. It rests on an established belief in the sanctity of immemorial traditions and the legitimacy of the status of those exercising authority under them. So basically there are some immemorial traditions, कुछ पुरानी परंपराएं हैं. There are some immemorial traditions and customs. So based on these traditions and customs, if a leader emerges, then that kind of authority is legitimate. This is nothing but traditional authority. If that authority is based on some old customs, some established traditions, some immemorial traditions, कुछ परंपराओं पे आधारित है, तो ऐसी कुछ authority होती है. This kind of authority is called as traditional authority. The persons exercising authority generally are called masters. Because it is tradition, because it is customs, they are basically called masters who enjoy personal authority by virtue of their inherited status. Their commands carry legitimacy because of the age-old customs and traditions. Because of the age-old traditions and customs and paramparaएं, their commands carry legitimacy. This is how their commands are valid for people. This is why people obey, because they are in tune with age-old customs and traditions. But they can also give orders based on their personal decision also. Thus, conformity with customs and personal arbitrariness are the two features of traditional authority. The persons who obey the orders are called followers. So जो master को follow करेंगे वो होंगे followers. So followers follow the masters. They carry out the commands of the master out of sheer personal loyalty. They have loyalty, personal loyalty, and a pious regard for his time-honored status because of his customs, age-old customs and traditions. This is why they obey the orders of their masters. These are the followers. This is a pure type of feudal or patrimonial regime under which the organization consists of household officials, relatives, or loyalists. So whatever organization exists under traditional authority, this organization consists of people who are household officials, relatives, and loyalists, because leader is nothing but who is based on age-old traditions and customs. So there will be no merit system in appointing the people of an organization, right? A person who is a king, who is a patrimonial king, will have people working for him who are household relatives and officials and loyalists. So this is nothing but traditional authority. Under this type, obedience is given not to the rules but to the rulers. So rulers are given more obedience. So rulers can change rules according to their wish. If ruler wants to give a death penalty to someone, it will be accepted. If he does not want to give a death penalty for the same crime to someone else, it will be accepted. So rules can be changed by rulers. So obedience is given to rulers and not to the rules. This is nothing but traditional authority. Not to the superiors but to the chiefs. So basically an organization or any type of organization consists of different levels, right? So there are superiors at every level. There are managers at every level. If you consider today's industries and companies, there are managers and superiors at every level, and there is a chief of every organization which is at the top. So obedience is to that chief, to the top, and not to the intermediate supervisors. Intermediate supervisors are just carrying out the will of the chief, and they are not given the obedience, but the chief is given. Rules are not given the obedience, but the rulers are given the obedience. This is the characteristic of traditional authority. New rules are not enacted, they are found. Where are they found? They are found in age-old traditions and customs. Obviously, based on some custom, if there is not a rule, ruler can create a new rule, and this kind of rules are not actually enacted, they are found in age-old traditions and customs. The only documents in the administration of law in such kind of authority are the documents of tradition, merely precedents. So whatever precedents जो आप पहले कर चुके हो, those are nothing but precedents. किसी ने चोरी की, आपने उसके हाथ काट दिए, that is a precedent that you have set. आपने एक precedent set कर दिया है. So whatever documents of administration are there, these are nothing but documents of tradition or precedents and nothing else. There are no well-defined rules that if you thief, you have to serve 5 years of jail time. There are no rules. Your hands can be cut off. These are nothing but precedents. Some precedents are set and you follow them. There are no predefined rules. Rules are found, they are not enacted, and rules can be changed by rulers. And all the documents that are there, those are nothing but documents of tradition. All the actions are legitimized in the name of traditions and customs. So whatever actions ruler take, it is all legitimate, it is all valid as long as it is legitimized in the name of traditions and customs. So this is nothing but first type of authority, traditional authority. So what is the source of legitimacy of traditional authority? Age old traditions and customs. So as long as it is valid according to age old traditions and customs, you are a valid ruler, you have a valid authority. And as soon as you lose this validity, as soon as you lose this legitimacy, your authority also get lost. So moving on to our second type of authority, which is nothing but charismatic authority. The first kind we saw was traditional authority based on traditional customs. Charismatic authority is based on charisma of a person, the aura that a person has. It rests on the devotion to a specific and exceptional sanctity, heroism, or exemplary character of an individual person, and of the normative patterns or order revealed or ordained by him. So whatever heroic qualities a person will have, whatever exemplary characters a person will have, based on those, authority is legitimized, based on those, authority is validated. So basically it means that the term charisma, which is nothing but gift of grace, the term charisma here implies supernatural or superhuman or extraordinary qualities of a leader. For example, Mahatma Gandhi was a charismatic leader. He had extraordinary qualities. He did not have supernatural, superhuman, but he had extraordinary qualities of a leader. So Mahatma Gandhi was a charismatic leader. Based on in charisma, he was a leader. So if a person has supernatural powers, if a person has superhuman powers, or if he has a super extraordinary qualities, he is a charismatic leader. Examples are sorcerers, prophets, or warriors of chieftains, or personal head of a party and demagogue. So these are the examples of charismatic authorities who based on their charisma became the leaders. In this type of authority, obedience was justified because the person giving order had some sacred or outstanding character. Because that person who is the leader, who is giving orders, he had some sacred or outstanding character, that is why he was chosen as leader. The leader exercises authority based on his personal qualities rather than formal stipulations or prescribed norms. So there are no formal stipulations, there are no rules, there are no principles or norms which are defined. On his personal qualities he can give commands. So when Mahatma Gandhi called for non-violence in Satyagraha, there was no written rule of non-violence in Satyagraha. Based on his personal qualities, he gave the call for that. So leaders exercise authority based on their personal qualities and not according to some formal rules. Those subject to the authority are followers and not subject. So basically in charismatic authority there are no masters, but still there are followers because they follow the leader, right? Due to their charisma, due to their qualities and supernatural powers, they follow them, so they are still followers, but the leaders are not masters. Under this authority, the leader selects his disciples or followers as his officials based on their personal devotion to him rather than their special qualifications or status. So again, there is no merit based selection of his supervisors or disciples or followers. There is no merit based selection. He just selects them based on their personal devotion to him, how loyal they are to him, and their special qualifications are not considered, their status are not considered, just personal devotion to him is considered. These disciple officials constitute an organization, and their sphere of activity and power of command depends upon likes and dislikes of the leader. So whatever the leader likes, the subordinates will command. Whatever the leader dislikes, the subordinates will not command. So these are the disciple officials. A significant feature of charismatic authority system is that it is unstable. It is good, but it is unstable. Why? The only basis of legitimacy is the personal charisma. The leader can exercise his authority so long as it is proved, that is, so long as it receives recognition and is able to satisfy the followers. As soon as they are not able to satisfy the followers, the leaders lose their charisma, and as soon as they lose their charisma, they lose the legitimacy to command the people. So everything that is based upon here is just the personal charisma. There is no age old traditions, there are no written rules, just the personal charisma. So as long as you have the personal charisma, you have the legitimate right to rule people or command people. This is why it is unstable. This is why charismatic authority is unstable. The system breaks down when the leader dies. If a leader dies, the system breaks down. The followers have no new leader, right? So when the leader dies, the system breaks down, or when the charismatic quality of the leader declines. So this is why it is unstable. However, Weber suggested the routinization definition of charismatic authority, either in authoritarian or democratic direction. What Weber said is, whatever kind of charismatic authority you have, it will always be routinized. It will not stay the same. It will either become authoritarian or it will either become democratic. So your charisma will always increase. If it is not declining, if the leader does not die, if your charisma does not decline, it will always increase in either of the two directions only. It will not remain the same. It will either become authoritarian, या तो आप हिटलर बन जाओगे, either you will become a Hitler, either you will become an authoritarian, such will be your charisma, or either you will become a democratic charismatic leader like Mahatma Gandhi. So your charisma will always increase. If it is not declining, it will always increase in just two directions, in only two directions, either an authoritarian routinization or a democratic routinization. This is the second type of authority that Weber gives us. It is the charismatic authority based on the personal charisma. Now coming to our third type, which is nothing but legal rational authority. Now we saw first type was traditional authority based on traditional customs and rules. Second was charismatic authority based on personal charisma of the leader. The third type is legal rational authority, which are based on legal and rational rules, the laid down principles, laid down rules. This is the most exhaustive kind of authority that can ever happen, because everything is laid down. There is a legal rationality to your authority. It rests on a belief in the legality of patterns of normative rules and the right of those elevated to authority under such rules to issue command. So there are some normative rules, there are some norms, there are some rules, and these norms and these rules have legality to them. There is some legal definition to these rules and norms. So there is a belief in the legality of patterns of normative rules and the right of those elevated to authority under such rules to issue commands. So whoever the leader is, they have a right to command because of these laid down principles, these laid down legal norms and legal rules. So I hope it is clear now. Obedience is owed to the legally established impersonal order. What do you mean by impersonal? Something which you do not bring in your personal feelings, personal emotions and personal bias, which is impersonal. You do not consider charisma of a leader. You consider someone as a leader because of his qualities and not because of his charisma and not because of some age-old traditions and customs. So there is a legally established impersonal order, and that is why you obey someone. That is what obedience is owed to. It extends to the person exercising the authority of office only by virtue of the formal legality of their commands and only within the scope of the authority of office. So whatever the scope that position or that office commands, the leader does not leave that scope. For example, in charismatic authority, the scope of authority is unlimited. The leader can ask you to die and you will die because of his personal charisma. This is what the scope of authority is. But in legal rational authority, the scope is defined in rules. The leader cannot leave that scope. It is within the scope of the authority of office, and it is only because of the virtue of the formally defined rules, the legally defined rules, that he can command the people. Legal authority systems are found in organizations where rules are applied judicially and in accordance with ascertainable principles valid for all members in the organizations. So basically everyone is treated equally in an organization, rules are applied judicially to all, and principles are valid for all members, and there is no nepotism or favoritism or biasness. Everything is laid down and everyone is equal. This is what is legal rational authority. The members who exercise power under this authority are the superiors. As we have seen in our previous slide, the people of traditional type of authority believed in chiefs and not superiors, right? There were many superiors in an organization and there was one chief at the top, so people obeyed to that chief and not to the superiors. But in legal rational authority, every superior, your manager, you will have to obey him, he will obey his manager will obey his manager. So every superior is obeyed. There is a obedience or compliance to every level of superiors. So members who exercise power under this authority are the superiors and not the chiefs, and are appointed or elected by legal procedures. There are no traditions because of which they are appointed. There are no personal charismas. They are appointed or elected because of legal procedures. There are well written rules and procedures, either by election or succession or appointment or whatever, to maintain the legal orders. So they are appointed based on merit system. This is not a spoiled system. This is a merit system on which they are appointed. There are well defined procedures for appointment. The organization is a continuous process and all its members are subject to certain rules. Obviously, Weber considers the legal authority as the most rational form of authority. Again and again I have repeated this through all my old sessions. What is rationality? Rationality means taking the best decision. If you have a problem, consider all the alternatives to that problem, weigh the pros and cons of all the alternatives, and choose the best alternative. That is your rational decision. So rational decision is based on getting the best alternative to any problem. So Weber considers legal authority as the most rational form of authority, because all the decisions that any leader makes is based on well defined and predefined rules. So it is the most rational form of authority. Obedience to legal rational authority depends on certain related beliefs, and he says that there are 5 kind of related beliefs. A legal code can be established which can claim obedience from members of organization. So if you are obeying a legal rational authority, there are 5 kind of beliefs because of which you obey a authority. The first belief is there is a legal code which makes you obey. There is a legal code which is why you obey. Second kind of belief is administration looks after the interests of the organization within the limits of the law. So because administration is looking after the interest of people within the limits of the law, of course, so that is why you obey. The third kind of belief is the man exercising authority who obeys this impersonal order. So as we have seen, every supervisor has a power to command, right? So your manager will obey his manager. So the man exercising authority on you also obeys that impersonal order. So this is why you obey your manager. This is why you obey your supervisor, your superior. So the man exercising authority also obeys this impersonal order. This is the third belief because of which obedience is done, because of which you obey. Only in the capacity of a member does the member obey the law. Because you are a member, that is why you obey, because the law commands that a member should obey. So only in the capacity of a member does the member obey the law. This is the fourth belief. The fifth and the most important belief is obedience is done not to the person who holds the authority, but to the impersonal order which has granted him this position. So for example, if Mr. XYZ is your manager, you are not actually obeying Mr. XYZ, you are actually obeying your manager. I hope you understand. The obedience is not to the person, it is not to the person XYZ, it is to the position that the person is in, it is to the impersonal order which has granted him this position. So not the person who holds the authority, but the position, the impersonal order that the person is in. So that is who you obey. These are the 5 beliefs that Weber believes are the reason of obedience. The last point is, thus Weber laid great stress on relationship between legitimacy and impersonal order. So there is a relationship between impersonal order and legitimacy. As long as you are impersonal, only till then you have legitimate right to command the people. This is what the relationship is in legal rational authority. This is the third kind of authority that Weber gives us. Now to touch upon a very small concept, some books consider authority as domination. If you read some of the books, you will find the word domination. Even in Mohit Bhattacharya's chapter of Max Weber's authority, you will find 3 kinds of traditional domination, charismatic domination, and legal rational domination. So some books consider authority as domination. So if in exam you encounter domination instead of authority, please remember that it is one and the same. So these are the 3 kinds of authority that Weber gives us on the sources of legitimacy. First is traditional authority based on age-old traditions and customs. Second is charismatic authority based on charisma, personal charisma. The third type is legal rational authority based on well defined and laid down rules, principles and norms which are legal and rational in nature. So we'll finish this session here, and the second session will actually deal with what ideal type model Weber gave us, right? Weber gave us some model of bureaucracy. We'll see what the features of this model are in my second session. Link for the same will be in the description. Hope to see you soon in my next session. Peace out.